What's up everybody, it's your girl Justyn and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, as you can clearly tell by the title, I'm going to be talking about something that happened to me a few weeks ago. As you can see, I pretty much got kicked out of a plane seat for my weight, and yeah, this really happened. This isn't clickbait as a lot of people do on YouTube. This isn't just me trying to get attention. Yeah, this was probably one of the most embarrassing things that has ever happened to me thus far. So just to like further explain everything, I'm gonna like take you guys all the way back just so everything, you know, is like understandable. So for those who don't know, I recently went to Jamaica for a family trip, if you will. It was actually for a wedding, and I left on a Thursday and came back on a Sunday. My friend Megan, she was in the last few vlogs with me. She also came with us on this trip, and so she also got kicked out as well. So this happened to both of us. So for starters, I just want to say that prior to this trip, I haven't flown in about 5 years. I had only flown one time prior, and I was about 100 pounds smaller, probably more than that, because I was still in high school when that happened. But yeah, that was a completely different experience, clearly because I was smaller. But anyway, I say that to say that even though I've flown before, it's been so long since I was still super nervous about flying. And Megan was as well, because I don't think she had flown in, I think she said 10 years. It had been a long time for her as well. So where we live, we had to drive 4 hours to Houston, Texas, and then catch a flight there from Houston to Jamaica. So the 4-hour trip, we had like butterflies in our stomach just because we were both extremely nervous to fly. And me personally, I also was kind of nervous because I do remember the seats not being very forgiving. And I remember when I was younger, I watched this movie. I think it was like Why Did I Get Married 2? 1 or 2, I don't know, but it was Jill Scott. Basically, she couldn't fit in the seat, or either she fit, but she was like, too much of her was touching the other guy. And basically they kicked her off the plane because they basically said that a woman her size had to buy 2 plane seats. And just after seeing that movie and knowing what size I am now, that was kind of a fear of mine, like going into this trip, that I was gonna be too big to fit into the plane seat. And also, Megan is a bigger woman as well. We're best friends. She's not gonna mind me saying that. We're both on this weight loss journey together. So I was already nervous about that. We both flew Southwest Airlines going and coming, and if you know anything about Southwest Airlines, they actually let you pick your own seats. I know most airlines kind of have like assigned seats, I guess, but Southwest, you pick your own seats, but you have like certain classes, I guess. Not classes like first class and coach, but you have like section A, section B, section C. And basically if you're section A, you get to board the plane first, and then section B boards after, and then basically section C is just kind of whatever is left. So once we got there and got our boarding passes, I was section A and Megan was section C. So to add on from the pressures of not being able to fit in our seat, I was also like extremely nervous because I'm not a very confrontational person, and clearly me and Megan were friends. We wanted to sit next to each other on the plane, and I knew that I was going to be able to board first, so it wouldn't be any problem for me. But I didn't want to tick anybody else off by saying, you can't sit here, you know, like this seat is reserved, because you really can't reserve seats on an airplane. We boarded the plane. Well, I boarded first. Megan had to wait in the little hangar area. I sat like towards the middle of the flight, and it was fine. Like the rest of the people who were in the section A, like nobody even tried to sit by me. Section B came along, and I think at least 3 people asked like, hey, can I sit here? Is someone sitting there? And I just had to be like, yeah, I'm holding it for such and such, yada yada. And some people were cool, and then other people I could tell were like really pissed off. So anyway, I was just just like cringing inside because I don't know, I don't like stuff like that. I don't like getting into it with people and causing a scene about certain stuff like that. So anyway, long story short, B came on, C came on, Megan ended up sitting right next to me. You guys, the seats were so tiny, and we're both large, so it was extremely uncomfortable. And it's kind of funny because in my last video, the vlog I did in Jamaica, me and Megan were like joking about it and, you know, talking to y'all about it. And while I was editing it and like watching it back over like a week later, I was just like laughing to myself, and I'm like, little did I know the next day we were gonna get kicked out of our seats. So anyway, this is still on the flight going. I had the window seat, and then Megan sat in the middle of me, and then there was another lady who sat on the aisle seat next to Megan. Thankfully, that lady was super duper cool. Like, Megan even joked with her. She was like, sorry, I'm like kind of spilling over in your seat. But that lady was so cool, and plus she was super tiny, so I don't really think it inconvenienced her that much. But it was just like, okay, cool, we don't have to like worry about being next to somebody who doesn't want to be next to us. So when it came time to like, you know, start taking off or whatever, we both realized we could not get our seatbelts like over us. I was actually able to click it like briefly, but this is really gross. I had to like pick up my stomach fat and like click it right underneath, and it was basically cutting off my circulation. And I know some of y'all are gonna be like, why didn't you ask for a seatbelt extension? But at that time we both didn't know about it, and they didn't say anything about it, or at least we didn't hear it. So we knew on the plane ride coming back, but going, we didn't know anything about a seatbelt extension. So that's why we didn't ask. But basically we kind of just hit it, and they like, the flight attendants came up and down, and they were kind of glancing. They weren't really checking, and they just passed us up, so we thought we were good. It wasn't like a requirement to be able to fasten up your seatbelt. So anyway, plane took off. We landed there safely. Everything was fine. We were cramped the entire time. I pretty much just got in one spot and just stayed there the entire ride because there was nowhere to move. I definitely wasn't about to be that person to get up and go to the bathroom and be up and down the whole flight. So long story short, we made it to Jamaica. So got there, spent 3.5 something days. We got there Thursday night, and then Sunday morning we headed back to Houston. Now this is where stuff went down. So this time around, going back to Houston, me and Megan actually had a strategy planned out. When we were on the plane coming in, we realized that there were a row of seats that only had 2 seats instead of 3. And basically it was right next to the exit door, you know, like in the middle of the plane, if something were to happen, they have the 2 doors on both sides that come up to let you out. So basically on one side of the plane where the exit door was, instead of having 3 seats on that side, it only had 2. And Megan was telling me, you know, because I was super nervous about having to save her spot and basically pissing other people off. And once we got our boarding tickets to fly back to Houston, I was still A, and this time she was B. So it was a little bit better because she wasn't C, but I was still pretty nervous about having to save her spot. So she made a good point. She was like, before we even got on the plane, she was like, you should try to go get in those seats, the 2-seaters. And then more than likely somebody isn't gonna ask me to sit in that seat next to me, because most people who we were traveling with were traveling in groups. So that was our plan, to try to, because she knew I was really nervous and I didn't really want to have to save her seat. It's not that I didn't want to save her seat, I hate conflict, and I don't like to get into it with people and feel like I'm disappointing other people. So that was our plan. We were like, I'm gonna go on the plane first, I'm gonna go straight for those seats, get it, and then save the next seat for Megan. And that way we don't have to sit next to anybody, like nobody's gonna be worried about us being too big. So that was the plan. So we're in the Jamaican airport. They call up section A. I go up and I immediately spot out the seat. Even though it was a different plane, it was still made up the same. I spot out the 2-seat row and I went straight for it. sat down in the one closest to the aisle, and I put my backpack in the other one. And basically what I tried to do in my head to like keep people from asking me is the whole time everybody was boarding, I like acted like I was like rummaging through my backpack trying to do something, hoping that nobody would ask me if they could sit there. So I noticed as I was sitting there, these seats on this plane actually felt smaller than the seats on the last plane we were just on. And I don't know if that was just me just being conscious of it or what, but it did feel like it was at least like an inch smaller because I was even more snug than I already was to begin with. So the rest of section A comes down fine, nobody asked me anything. B comes down, she's like at the very end of B, so I think one person asked me if they could sit there, and I just told them, hey, you know, so and so is sitting here, and they were fine, they were cool about it. So she comes on, she sits down. I'm thinking, whew, like we can breathe now, everything's fine. I'm able to sit next to my best friend, going back to, you know, the States. Everything's cool, calm, and collected. Well, boy, was I wrong. Basically, the flight attendants start doing their thing about the safety and yada, yada, yada. And they start telling everybody about the seat belts, and I noticed them going down, and this time around, they were checking because I could see them like from the start of the plane, like telling people, you know, move this. Like they were tugging, like they were actually checking to make sure everybody had their seatbelts fastened on. And as I was like watching them getting closer and closer to us, I was internally just freaking out because this time around I couldn't get it to fasten, even like holding my stomach up or anything. Megan couldn't get hers as well. So I was just, it was like watching just, I don't know, I was like, oh my gosh, they're finna kick us off this plane. So we're both sitting there just looking at each other, waiting for some stuff to pop off because we already know something is gonna happen. And the guy makes his way to us, and he was like, hey, do you guys have your seatbelts fastened? And we kind of just looked at him like, no, we can't fasten it. And a few rows ahead of us, I heard him ask a man that, and he said, well, here's a seatbelt extension. So a part of me just like kind of like was a little bit relieved, and I was like, oh, okay, he'll just have to give us seatbelt extensions. So after he got to our seat and we told him, no, we really can't fasten it up, his face dropped and he was like, well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but actually it's a requirement in order for you to sit in these seats, aka the emergency seat rows, that you cannot have a seatbelt extension. And we both just like kind of sat there. We didn't really know what to say. Like my whole heart dropped, everything dropped, because I felt just so much shame and embarrassment. And I'm like, okay, well, what do we do? And the guy was like, you're gonna have to switch with somebody who's not on this row of seats. And so instantly, like, I could already feel my eyes welling up because it was just extremely embarrassing, and I felt like I was holding everybody up, holding the process up and everything. And then it wasn't even like me not being able to sit next to Megan, it was just the principle of it, just being embarrassed. So we were like, okay, and we like got up slowly. Granted, everybody's sitting down now, everybody behind us is staring at us like, what's the holdup? So we both got up, and the people directly on the next row behind us, there was a couple, and they got up and they were like, hey, we'll switch with you guys, it's no problem. And so then like I was like, whew, okay, at least we don't have to go all the way to the back or whatever. And then we looked at the guy and we were like, can we switch with them? And he was like, you know, actually that row, basically the row we were on, the row behind us and the row in front of us were all considered emergency exit rows, and we couldn't sit there because we were too big, basically. So he was like, no, I'm sorry, you actually can't sit on that row either. And this time around, because the first time he kind of said it a little bit directed towards us, only the people immediately around us could hear. But when he told the couple, like, no, you can't switch with them, literally the whole half of the plane heard. And I just remember like I just did not want to turn around and face the back of the plane because I felt like everybody would just be staring at us. And when I finally did, everybody was staring at us. We kind of walked towards the back. A guy who was sitting in one seat, he said, hey, I'll switch with you, I'm riding by myself. So I switched with him, and then Megan walked like I think 2 seats behind on the other side of the plane, and she switched with the lady who was sitting there. So it may seem like I'm making this a really big deal, but at the time it literally it was so embarrassing. It's still embarrassing for me to talk about now. And I just remember once I got in my seat that I had to switch with, I was trying so hard not to let the tears fall, because the tears were already there. It only would have taken like one blink and I would have been like petrified and crying, because I was just, I mean, that's super embarrassing. And it's like, what can you do? You can't do anything but just, I mean, do what they say. The guy comes back around, he's checking people, and he gets to me and he hands me a seatbelt extension, and I put it on. Everything's fine with that. I was on the aisle seat on the left, and the couple, there was an older couple sitting next to me in the middle, and in the window seat, they did not say one word to me. They looked like they were disgusted that I was sitting next to them, and just really annoyed that I was even there and that everything was going on. The entire flight, they didn't say one word to me. So going from flying there, having such a cool person, you know, understand that we're bigger and yada yada, to just going back and having these 2 people just kind of look at you like you're the scum of the earth, was really hard. And so I remember, sat down with my extension, I put on my earphones and I like blasted music because I didn't want to hear anything that had to be said. I just really just wanted to, I don't know, I guess try to block everything out and take away from what had just happened and the pain and everything. And like I said, I was trying so hard not to cry. I was like, I don't want to be the crybaby on the flight who's crying because she got moved to a different seat. So I was really trying hard to like keep all of my emotions in. I'm like, it's fine, I'm gonna get there. I just won't be able to sit next to Megan. Just hold yourself together. Don't be the big emotional person on the plane. So we started taking off. My music is blasting. I'm really not listening to anything. I'm just like trying to hold it all in together. And it was so many emotions building up. I went from being nervous about holding Megan's seat to being scared that I was gonna get my seat taken, to being embarrassed that my seat got taken, and now having to, you know, be jolted up in a few thousand feet in the air on an airplane. So once we finished like going up, you know, up on the plane, and we kind of settled out a little bit, I looked behind me and I looked at Megan, and that was, I feel myself getting emotional. That was honestly the point where it almost like broke me, really, because up until then I wouldn't look back at her. She was only like the person across from me, she was 2 seats behind them, so I could look at her diagonal like that. And up until that point I had looked at her because I don't know, I was so upset about everything. I just wanted to like keep looking straight. So anyway, I didn't expect to get emotional right now, but I looked back at her, and when I saw her face, her whole face was like red, and I could tell she was basically feeling the same things that I was feeling, and she was just as embarrassed as me. And we didn't really even say anything to each other. It was just like, damn, like this really just happened to us. It was like we were communicating without saying any words, and you know, it just sucks. I actually wrote a note on my phone because, you know, we couldn't text on the plane, and I wrote a note and I passed it to her, and I actually still have it. It says, I'm trying so hard not to cry right now. And she just sent me back, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay. So with all that being said, that was pretty much it. After that little moment, I kind of stayed to myself. I listened to music, I played a few games on my phone, I fell asleep for probably about an hour out of the 3 hours that we were on the plane. And then we landed, we made it safe, everything was fine and dandy. Damn, my makeup, it just ruined my makeup. Damn, that tear just left a streak. Oh well, I'm not gonna fix that. So anyway, we made it there fine, safe and sound, which honestly at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Me and Megan kind of reflected more on it once we landed and just talked about how embarrassing it was. I know for Megan, her first reaction was kind of to be pissed with the stewardess, which I also was too as well. But once I had time to like reflect and think about it, you know, I just feel like they have those rules set for a reason. Dealing with planes and TSA and all that, there's so many rules and regulations and whatnot, and there's probably a reason why they're not allowing people who need a seatbelt extension to sit in the emergency exit rows. The most obvious one I can think of is they want, you know, people who are most fit and most capable to get out the plane first, or I guess to open up the doors if they need to. So I honestly don't blame the stewardess. I don't blame Southwest or anything in this video. I'm not posting it to bash the airlines or anything like that. I mean, even like I was probably like mad about it for like a minute or two, and then I was just overcome with embarrassment and shame, because it's all on me that I'm the size that I am and that I've allowed it to get this bad to where things like this happen, and I basically can't fit into an airplane seat. So I'm actually making this video after the fact. It's been about 2 weeks since this happened, and you know, right after it happened, I was so embarrassed. I didn't tell anybody. The only person who even knows about this until today is Megan. Even my younger brothers I don't think know, and they were on the same flight as us, but they sat way up at the front, so I don't really think they even heard what was going on, and they didn't say anything afterwards, so I don't really even think they knew that that happened. But nobody knows about this, and for a while I was even questioning if I wanted to film this and put it up, because it is so embarrassing. I'm tired of like getting on here and boo-hoo and crying, and like I don't want anybody to feel pity for me about my weight. But at the end of the day, it is a journey. I feel like I say that all the time. It's my journey, and it's not gonna be all ups. It's not gonna be all happy times. It's gonna suck sometimes, and this was probably one of the biggest lows I've had to face thus far in this journey. This that happened to me was definitely like a reality check, because nobody wants that to happen to them or to really anybody. And even not just the plane, that incident itself, but even traveling to Jamaica. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed my time. I had such an amazing time in Jamaica, but I feel like it would have been even better if I would have been smaller, and if I would have been more capable of doing more things, not worrying about my stretch marks being out and my fat hanging over and getting winded just walking up the stairs to go to our room and whatnot. You know, we were super productive in Jamaica. I feel like we really made the most of our trip, the few days we were there. But I do think if we were smaller, it would have been like, we would have been able to do more and have more stamina and, you know, just be in a better place. So with all this being said, you know, I just have to turn all of this anger and embarrassment and shame into motivation and self-discipline and consistency and all the positive things that come along with losing weight. I'm making this video just to let you guys know what happened, but like I said, it's been 2 weeks from the situation. I've let it go. You know, there's nothing I can do about it. It happened. It is what it is. I believe Megan feels the same way, but I can't speak for her. We both know now what we have to do. We knew before, but more than ever now, what has to be done. Because I can't live the rest of my life like this. I can't. I don't want to feel winded just walking around. I don't want to have to worry about, am I gonna fit, am I not gonna fit, Am I gonna get embarrassed today? Am I gonna be annoying people because I'm too fat to sit next to them? You know, I don't want to have to deal with those things anymore. And this incident was really just a life lesson and a shock to my system that I need to get back on my grind and do what I need to do as far as my weight. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, even though it was kind of a downer type of video. But like I said, there's gonna be goods, bads, ups and downs in this journey, and that's why it's called a journey. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to give it a thumbs up if you do. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Join me on this journey. And for today's comment of the day, I want you guys to also comment if anything like this has ever happened to you. If maybe you've been embarrassed about your weight, or like anything like that, anything relative that, you know, I could see. And I'll make sure to be reading them all and commenting back and showing you guys much love. So guys, I hope you guys enjoy your week. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of the day, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye guys.